Hi everyone, it's Kimber, the Study Abroad Specialist, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 of the common vaccines that you might need to study abroad. So before we dive into today's topic, I did just want to point out that this is specifically for educational and informational purposes only. So I am not a medical professional, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. So I always like to recommend that students please reach out to their primary care physician or to their family doctor to figure out what's going to be the best route for them for any vaccines that might be recommended or required for them to study abroad, so that they can understand better how that's going to impact their health, and they'll be able to make the best decision along with their doctor to figure out what they should and should not be taking. So I definitely just want to point that out. I also want to say as well that I have a freebie for you. So if you are just getting started on your study abroad journey, feel free to look into the description box to download my study abroad starter worksheet. So with this, it takes about 10 minutes or so to fill out. It is a great way to just be able to get your ideas flowing of what you want to do with study abroad, what types of programs you might want to look for, what are your starting points for your goals of study abroad. It's going to be a great way to do it. So if you've just landed here and you're like, I'm not quite ready to even think about vaccines for study abroad, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do, then you still have something that you can do, and you can still watch the video so that you get the information. But I did just want to say really quick off the top of the bat here that I am not going to be diving into the specifics of what I'm calling the 2020 vaccine. So everyone knows what that is. I feel like since that is something that is not what I would consider settled law at this point, every country is kind of doing something different. There are some countries that are requiring it. There are some countries that are not requiring it. There are some programs that are requiring it, even if the country doesn't require it. It's just too new still. And so I feel like I don't want to put information out there that would be changing in the next 10 weeks or however long. I want this information to live here for a long time. And so the vaccines that I'll be talking about are things that are much more settled, that we're all pretty used to hearing about, but that you may need a refresher on just in case you need to get up to date, or if this is something that you may not have taken that is being recommended by your program, you at least know that this is something that might be commonly seen throughout the application process. So we're going to dive into those now. The first vaccine that may be either required or recommended for you to study abroad is going to be the MMR vaccine. So that is the measles, mumps, and rubella series of vaccines. So with this one, a lot of people around the world have already taken this. A lot of people take it when they're really young, myself included. So it was something that was supposed to be good for life. And as far as we know, that is true. So if you are someone who your parents allowed you to take vaccines when you were younger, you probably took it when you were 2 or 3 years old, and it was supposed to be good for life. However, I know that there is a lot of research now that says that certain people should take boosters. And as we know, even though these vaccines are supposed to be good for life, and measles and mumps and rubella are not something that are completely widespread, there have been different cases, even as early, as recent rather, as 2022. So this year, as I'm filming this, where there have been certain outbreaks in certain places. So it's not fully eradicated. It's not like polio or something like that. So you definitely will just want to, again, consult with your family doctor, consult with your primary care physician to just make sure that that's not something that you're going to be required to get. Because again, as it is a series, it's not something where you can just kind of take it and then, you know, the next day you go and take the other one. It takes time to do that. And so if you are in a situation where you're going to need to get the series of vaccines, maybe you haven't even had it before, but now you're going to need it to be able to study abroad, you're going to want to make sure that you have a plan with your doctor so that you can go through and make sure that you're doing it properly, because they want to ensure that you're not having an allergic reaction to anything, or that you have time to get it all in before you study abroad. So that's the first one that you will commonly see that's either going to be required or recommended as a vaccine to study abroad. So the next vaccine that might be either required or recommended for you to study abroad is going to be, depending on how you want to refer to it, the TDAP or the TDP, or it's even called DPT. So basically this is tetanus, diphtheria, and whooping cough. So essentially with these 3 diseases, what you're trying to do is you're trying to protect yourself from these dangerous infections. So with diphtheria and with whooping cough, specifically, these are transferred from person to person, whereas with tetanus, I know is mainly infection from, it could be from manure, it could be from soil, it could be from stepping on rust. There's lots of different things that happen. But with this is a common vaccine that a lot of students have to get. Now with this vaccine is interesting because it's only good for up to 10 years. So what's recommended is if you have had it within the past 10 years, and I know most of my students out there, you are in college or university, some of you are even in high school, so you probably have had it. But if you are out of that range of 10 years, it is recommended that you get a booster shot after 10 years. So if you are within that window where maybe you're close to reaching your 10-year mark, maybe you got it when you were younger, you might have to get it again. Or again, as you are consulting with your doctor, they may say, you're probably fine, you're in good health. They really are able to tell. And again, as you're talking to your doctor about where you are studying abroad and where you're going to be going, they have a lot more information about the statistics of these particular diseases, these particular infections, and what's going to be most prevalent. Maybe you're not going to a place where whooping cough has been in existence for the past 10, 15, 20 years. So it may not be as big of a deal. Whereas if you're going to some places, particularly underdeveloped and third world countries where things are not as up to date, you may have to get those. And so you'll definitely want to consider that. But I did just want to point out the fact that unlike some of the vaccines, particularly the MMR, there's so many acronyms, but unlike the MMR, where it's supposedly good for our entire lives once we get it, you definitely have to just keep in mind that for the DPT or TDP, I'm getting all confused here, but with that one for the tetanus, diphtheria, and the whooping cough, that it's usually good for up to 10 years and then you may need a booster. So definitely keep that in mind in case you need to get that. So the third vaccine that might be either required or recommended for you to study abroad is going to be the hepatitis B vaccine. So keeping in mind that, you know, there are a variety of different hepatitis strains out there. So there's hepatitis A, there's hepatitis C, where there's no vaccine for that. But hepatitis B is the most common one. That's the one that most people take a vaccine for. Again, having the vaccine can typically stop severe damage to your liver for getting hepatitis. So even if you are infected, so that's why a lot of people recommend it. And also to just making sure that you are covered so that you don't run into that. I know that, again, if you are going to be traveling to a place that is more underdeveloped, this is more of a bigger concern. But even if you're going to a place that is considered a first world country, you still may want to consider that because there are often outbreaks of different things and you want to be covered if you choose to be. And this is, again, speaking specifically to people that do choose to actively take vaccines. So for that particular one, it is supposed to be good for 15 to 20 years. So again, for a lot of my students out there, you should be covered. You probably had it, and maybe then you went off to college, and so you're still in good shape. You're within that window, or you could have had it even younger. I know there are some people that they get it when they're in middle school, grade school. And so you will just, again, want to discuss this with your doctor. But with this one, this is one that a lot of people say, well, do I need to take it if I'm not going to a specific country where there hasn't been an outbreak? But again, you will find that it is likely going to be on the required list or the recommended list, depending on your program and where you're traveling. So definitely keep that in mind as well. So the fourth vaccine that I really always get annoyed talking about, because for that one, I feel like I was duped, and I know that a lot of people probably felt that way. I mean, I was just a kid, but for chickenpox vaccine, how many people out there have had chickenpox, even though we were all vaccinated in the 80s and 90s with the chickenpox vaccine? But it is still one that a lot of people will either require it for you to be able to study abroad in their country, or it is at least recommended. And again, it's one of these diseases, like a lot of diseases, where you think of it as just a kid disease, but no, anyone can get chickenpox. So even if you are 21 years old living in a dorm, you can still get them. And it's probably not as fun, particularly if you are studying abroad, you're away from your family and you're just all itchy and not really getting taken care of. So I would definitely recommend that even if you have had the chickenpox vaccine, like a lot of people have when they were younger, that you just check in with your doctor and double check to see if you can get any type of a booster. I know that for some people as well, even though it's not the same thing, they've had chickenpox and now they suffer from shingles. So is there anything that you can do to sort of circumvent that? Or are you going to need an extra type of vaccine that's maybe a little bit different to just help you along with that? Again, shingles and chickenpox are not the same thing, but I do know quite a few people who they had a really bad case of chickenpox when they were little, and now they get shingles all the time. And so they do have treatment for that. So definitely talk to your doctor about that. If you are someone who has not had chickenpox, you are very lucky. It's not very fun, but you want to check in as well to see, understand with your doctor, are you going to a place where there have been huge outbreaks? What is the likelihood of you getting it? What are some of the things you can do to be preventative with it as well? It sort of comes up suddenly. It's not one of these things where you may feel bad for a couple of days and then suddenly they appear. You could go to bed one night and the next night you wake up with chicken pox. I can tell you that from experience. I was little, but I can tell you that even as an adult, I've heard of people doing that. They go home from work, they're fine. The next day they wake up and they're covered. They likely got it from their children. But it doesn't matter. You need to understand what that's going to be, because again, as you are studying abroad, you're going to be in a foreign place. You likely won't have any doctor connections over there. So it's going to be kind of weird to kind of have to go to a place where you're unfamiliar. You're kind of sitting in the emergency room or the A&E or wherever you are. And you just want to make sure that you are covering yourself so that you can prevent a situation like that. So definitely ask about chickenpox and what the likelihood is of you needing to get that vaccine or even some type of a booster when you go talk to your doctor about it. But that definitely is one that is on the list for sure. That's either going to be required or recommended to study abroad. Last but not least, for number 5, we are talking about the meningitis vaccine. Now with this one, I know that particularly here in the US, it's probably different in a lot of other countries. So if you are coming from a different country and you're going somewhere else, maybe you have not even been exposed to this vaccine, but I know for a lot of students here that are in their teens, even preteens, and obviously at college level, a lot of colleges and universities here in the US require that students have meningitis just because it spreads so quickly. And so if you are in the situation where you are currently a high school student or college, university student here in the US, you likely already have this. If you are a student in another part of the world, you may not have it, but it may be something that you want to look into if it's never been required for you or recommended even. Because with meningitis, it is not something to play with. It can be very, very devastating because it can spread not only to your lymph nodes, but also impact your brain capacity. There's so much that happens with this powerful disease. And so if you are someone who you're worried about, the other thing too is that the reason why it's required in a lot of colleges and universities here is because it spreads really rapidly between people, even if they're not necessarily interacting physically. So within those small quarters of dorms and people sharing different things, it can spread that quickly. And so that's why there's been such a heavy push, because we have so many people in these dorm style buildings. In a lot of other countries, you don't have to deal with that in terms of how people go to school and they do different things. But if you are interested in studying abroad in a place that is going to require that or recommend it, you're going to want to talk with your doctor about figuring out, is it really necessary for you to get it? Again, how long are you going? Now, if it's going to be connected to your visa, or if it's going to be required where it doesn't matter what the program says, you have to get it, then you're going to have to talk with your doctor to sort of make the best decision for yourself and figure out if you're going to be able to do that. So I definitely just wanted to point out that meningitis is definitely one that a lot of people are familiar with, particularly here in the US and also in Canada too. I think they have similar rules around that. But for a lot of people outside of North America, you may not be as familiar with the vaccine, you may not have had it. So that is something that you'll want to research and talk with your doctor about getting before you decide to study abroad. So as we wrap up here, I just wanted to just kind of say, I really went through these really quickly because again, as I said, I just wanted to get you familiar with the names if you have not heard them in a while, or if you've never heard them at all, just so that you can take that information and as you're going through and trying to decide on your programs and figure out you get the next steps of what's going to be needed, that you're going to know what to be able to discuss with your doctor and also with your family as well, so that you can make the best decision. Now, I will say that there are 2 points to hit on here that are additional to this. So if you are going to a place where these certain vaccines are required and it's going to be connected to, let's say, a visa or entry, there are a lot of countries like that, particularly non-Western countries, that will require that. You're really going to have to make a decision of if you want to do that. Do you have another option for study abroad outside of those particular areas? It is not something that places like the US or the UK typically require for you to get entry, but a lot of times they do want to see that you have had it, but it's not necessarily going to impact your visa. So that's a good thing. They won't hold it over your head like that. But then your program could also come back and say, well, we require all students to have it because you're going to be living in this small space together and we want you all to have it. So there's a lot to think about. For my students out there who are not vaccine takers, I am not here to shame you. I know that there are lots of people that choose to opt out of that. They choose to not do that. That is totally fine. That has always been my particular stance on that, even before 2020. That is your business. That's your life. But I will say that you're going to have a little bit of a harder time when it comes to study abroad because it's going to get you some way. You definitely have to present some record of immunization when you are planning to study abroad. So as I said, it could be because the consulate is requiring it to issue you a visa. It could be because the country is requiring it so that you can get into customs. It could be that the program is requiring it. So there is something to be said about wanting to have that individual freedom, which I actually do agree with if that is your choice. But I will just say that if you have gotten up to this point and you have not had any vaccines, that you may find that this is a roadblock for you. And I will say that I don't necessarily have any good advice on that. I don't think that you should have to sacrifice your personal beliefs in order to study abroad. But I do, however, understand that you are taking a different step because you're not just staying in your country. And a lot of people these days in particular, not just with the 2020 vaccine, but just with general things, they're trying to be as careful as possible. And so they're saying, we want people to have everything before they come into our country. And that makes sense because, again, they don't want you to be bringing things inside the country. They don't want to have another person on the healthcare rolls. I get all of that. So I think that the best way forward for that, whether or not you have taken these vaccines or whether or not you're still thinking about it, is to have good consultation with your doctor, with your primary care provider, and also to talk about this clearly with the program providers of the study abroad program that you're doing, because they have likely run into students who have not taken vaccines before. And how did they actually deal with that? How strict was it? And what do they have to submit as an alternative to that if they could do anything? So I would definitely recommend that if you are in that situation. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. I know that with something like vaccines, it's not something that you always want to talk about. It's not very glamorous and sexy, but we definitely need to talk about it because it impacts people studying abroad just like it impacts people everywhere. So definitely just write down this information. You can play it over and over again. Definitely talk with your doctor and your family about it and make the best choice that's going to be great for you so that you can get started and get going with study abroad. So if you are new to my channel, I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. So if you are new to my channel, definitely go ahead and subscribe. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Thursdays and So if you are new to my channel, thank you for sticking with me here. So if you are new to my channel, thanks for sticking with me here. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. So if you are new to my channel, thanks so much for sticking with me here. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. So definitely hit the subscribe button so that you can get notifications on that. And please share this video with other students. I know that if you are interested in study abroad, you probably have other friends, other people within your network that are interested in doing that as well. And my goal here on this channel with every piece of content that I put out is to make sure that you have valuable information that you can at least research and then go forward and take it forward so that you have everything you're going to need for a great semester away. I'm so excited that you found this channel and that you watched this video, and I will see you on the next one.